Hello and welcome to today's video where we'll be going through the best and worst at flash assists in 2021, but we'll be looking at both teams and players here, whilst also looking at a bit more of the numbers behind the flash assists, right? So more like, you know, the best players threw this many flashbangs per round, but how many more did they throw than their counterparts at the top end? How many of their flashes actually resulted in assists compared to their counter ends as well? So let's get this started. So first up, we have the top 10 teams by flash assists in 2021 with their highest performing players highlighted. So number 1 through 2021 was Bad News Bears. So considering that Swisher was the highest performing player with 0.07 and as a team there's 0.31, means that collectively they seem to have quite a high average, right? That seems like they, altogether, they were performing very, very well as a team here. So it wasn't just a case of one player doing really well and then the others being dedicated entries. It was more everybody's doing their own part here. And alongside we see Sangal, Team Liquid, so Major and Fallen in there. Fallen, of course, number 1 in flash assists, as you can see, 0.11 is pretty damn high. OC coming in there as well, Big Clan, Lingby Vikings. So not many of the traditional top teams from this last year coming in here, right? Because if you think about the top 5 teams of the last year, it's probably been, what, Na'Vi, Gambit, G2, Vitality, perhaps Heroic, you know, VP, and those teams aren't present here. Like the highest ranked team in this list would probably be Big alongside Liquid and then OG, right? It's those three. Whereas everybody else here is more, you know, they're probably more dominant in that, you know, top 50 area, which is the filter being used here too. So this is now the bottom 10 teams by flash list with their best player highlighted. So we actually get Gambit in here, which is quite interesting really. One win also make an appearance, which, yeah, quite a devastating drop-off really when you compare to their teams around them. But Gambit being on the list's not actually that surprising. When you think back through most of the teams that usually get their, you know, presence in a list like this, it's usually based on their in-game leaders being dedicated to supporting elements as opposed to fighting elements, right? So FaZe have Carrigan. Whilst he's a great IGL, he's not quite an IGL where he is being a supportive player through the use of grenades. He's more aggressive, he'll be going for the opening kills himself, which means there is room for Brokey, for example, to be that leading flash list player for them. And then Gambit's the same, right? Nafany, he's not again that same type of IGL that you'd have supporting players like that. He instead is more of a opening kill presence on the map, which means that Shiro has a chance to be the leader for them. Yeah, some surprising bits I suppose as well, that like Furia is the same argument I've just had there, whereas Art is actually the leader in flash assists for them, which is kind of worrying really, because we know he doesn't really have much time to, you know, do that actually on the map either. But Snack's actually making an appearance here, it's quite surprising. So we'll now go through the top 10 players by flash assists. So I mentioned Fallen, number 1. So we can see here is the flash assist per round is this first number here. The percentage is actually what their percentage is of their team, right? So the leader in this list is actually going to be Maluk, or Maluki, depending on how you want to pronounce that name. So he had 0.10 flash assists per round, which was 42% of his team's flash assists per round. So contributing more than his fair share if you are to use the system of every player should have an equal share, which isn't the case at all in Counter-Strike. But it definitely shows that he is up there. But one thing I'm going to go for, which is a trend I noticed for the past, you know, few years, I guess technically, AWPers tend to be near the top of the flash assist charts, and that's because obviously they're going to be holding back on the T side. If they've got the AWP out, they're going to be holding quite far back, and they get to throw the flashes in alongside maybe one other player. So, you know, we've got Fallen, Jame, Maluki, OC all in the top 5 alongside Mike Max, who's IGL. So Stadoda's also an AWPer. Birchman Sky I think is IGL as well. Major IGL, Alexi IGL, Hooksy IGL. So, you know, it's half and half IGL and AWPers. So if you're an AWPer, you should probably be looking at the demos of people such as Fallen, even Jame, like maybe not for his saving elements. Maluki, OC. OC is definitely one I'm really looking forward to seeing through this next year as well on Liquid, because he has shown year in, year out so far that he is capable of getting high flash assist numbers, which isn't off of the back of his own individual ability, right? He's still throwing these flashbangs which have to be good for his teammates to benefit off of. So we are now looking at the bottom 10 players by flash assists here. So this is a bit more of a, if you're on the list, you probably want to maybe look at ways to improve, which everybody at the bottom 10, other than one player here, Masuta, is on 0.02, which is... I don't think I need to explain how quite bad the numbers are there. Like, it is literally just 1 in 50 rounds will have a flash assist by that player, and it's like that's awful. Like, that's really bad. But Masuta somehow comes in strong at 0.01, so he literally gets a flash assist every 100 rounds according to this system that's being used here, which I don't think there's any words to describe that, to be honest. That's like, yeah, we'll move on. So this is more along the efficiency thing I was thinking about, right? So this actually shows the flashes thrown per round, which is the blue line here. We've got the average opponent flash duration in seconds per round, and then we also have flash assists per round in green, okay? So one of the noticeable things is that we have flashes thrown per round. Only one player has above 1, that's Fallen. He also has the highest average opponent flash duration, which makes sense, and he also has a higher flash assists per round ratio, which obviously would make sense. If you're throwing more flashes, you're more likely to get more assists, but he does actually get more assists as well, so it's not just a case of likelihood, he does, right? But he's about 20% higher than Jaime, nearly 50% higher than Maluki, but he only has 10% more assists. So that's quite a difference to make or bear in mind here, because when you think about how a flash is thrown, right, so sometimes people are throwing flashes where it's just more of a conditioning, right? I've done this flash every round, so I need to keep doing it every round to make sure they know I'm still doing that same default, so that they don't get any ideas where they think they can take space. Like, they should know, like, oh, they're flashing on train, for example. This is a very old example, but on train, some players will be flashing that B, a brown hole sort of area every round, like just to flash the lower ramp, and that would be a conditioning, because it's like, you're up on my ask, oh, can I go for a pick then? You're like, no, they always flash that when they take it. And it's like, okay, cool. And that could be an example of a flash being thrown, which maybe blinds an opponent, but there's no assist from it. So what that means for me, though, is we can then use these numbers here. So we'll use OC and Maluki, because they've got the lowest flashes thrown rates here as well. But they also have, 2 of the highest flash assists per round ratings of the last year as well. And they have relatively low average flash durations as well, whilst also maintaining a pretty solid assist ratio. So it's like, they're able to get assists with their flashbangs, which are very clinical, is how I describe it. Like, they're very, very clinical, because they're able to maximize the effect of that flash to their utmost ability. But it also means that they're probably not using flashbangs to clear out areas, but they're actually using them as an entry flash. So I'm going to flash this, you're going to go in, you're going to kill somebody, as opposed to I'm flashing this, clear this corner, and there's nobody there, right? So we're actually going to jump into the bottom 10 now as well. So it's the same system again, right? Green is flash assists per round, blue is flashes thrown per round, and then red for average opponent flashed per round. So this is again just instantly Masuta, honestly. The flash is awful, just awful. So we have an easy trend showing already, which is that with less flashes thrown, there's less assists, there's also less opponent flash duration, which all adds up. But it's just tragic, really. Like, he throws a flash on average every 4 rounds. I'd like to willingly suggest that he definitely does have a flash in his inventory more than once every 4 rounds. And I know, with the fact that he on average throws 1 every 4 rounds, he then gets an assist every 100. It's so... the numbers are just woeful, right? And now this is actually just the percentage of flashes thrown that result in an assist. So this is using the flashes thrown per round, along with flash assists per round, right? So we can clearly see Maluki and OC, they had one of the lowest flashes thrown per round, but also had one of the highest flash assists per round, which means they get this lovely 13% tally, right? Which is fantastic, okay? But then we get people such as, Fallen, 10%. So he might have had the most flash assists per round in 2021, but he does not have the highest percentage of flashes thrown that result in an assist. He's actually in the top 10. He's more along the lines of being, technically speaking, he's right in the middle of this top 10, which wouldn't really reflect his status as, number 1. And then this last one, we've done the same thing again. This is now using the same situation that we had for the previous slide. And again, this is now giving more benefit of the doubt, where we saw 9% and 10% as like the average in that top 10. Dreamer has 7%, so he's actually, you'd argue, he's probably one of the more better players in that bottom 10 when it comes to flashbang use, which 100% true, 100% true. This kind of backs that up. However, obviously, the key is then, if you increase the flashes thrown, if that increases the amount of assists provided from the flashbangs, we are uncertain. We can't prove that unless he suddenly decided to increase it himself, right? But all in all, this has just been a bit of like interesting analysis, a bit of talk through about flash assists, about the numbers behind them as well, right? So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.